Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and today I'm going to be working in Rita Berman's Under the Microscope, Underwater, or whatever, the water book. And I'm going to be doing this page. And I'm going to be testing out the Black Edition 100 pencil set. I talked about this last week. I just got the 100. And so I'm testing them out, and to be honest, I did a page in the Main Street book, the Creative Haven Main Street book, and I really wasn't thrilled with how they layered. So I wanted to give them another shot because they have a beautiful palette and they're fairly reasonable. So, and they're really great on black. So I thought, let's give it a go again. Maybe it was just my mood. Maybe it was the colors I was using. Maybe it was the paper. So I'm going to do the opposite in this one. And I picked this because I want it to be very colorful and very vibrant. So let's go. Okay, before I get to chatting, it's worth noting that these pencils do not have names. So I did put the color number up for what I'm doing. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And if you're coming back, I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this color along. Now this color along is over 3 hours, so I'm going to kind of pop in and out with my chatting. I will try and have the little speaking head icon whenever I talk. So I hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend. I hope you took some time to relax and do some coloring, spend time with your family. We had kind of a mellow 4th of July because we had just gotten back from a vacation. We did drive all the way to Michigan, and we kind of drove around Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, and then down into Wisconsin, and then across Iowa, Nebraska, and then dropping down into Colorado. So it was a lot of driving. We have a Sprinter van that we converted, and we have a lot of fun in that. It's got a bathroom, it's got a shower, it's got a microwave, it's got a stove, a fridge, a bed. It isn't super fancy, but it's ours, and we're able to go and do camping the way I want to do camping at my age. We spent a lot of years doing the tent and sleeping on the ground, and while that was fun when I was younger, as I got older, my hips were not as appreciative. And so we kind of lucked into a really good deal on a Sprinter van, and we spent it, Lonnie spent 2 years converting it and building it out into an actual RV that we can, function in. If I had done that, we'd be eating ramen off of one of those portable stoves. But he did a really great job, and it's been a lifesaver for us because we can go places we couldn't afford to go before because of the cost of hotels and rental cars and things like that. So it's something that really works with our lifestyle. But we did go up to Michigan, so we were able to see Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior. And it's really amazing. Like, you see how big the lakes are on paper, but until you really see them in person, they're almost like going to an ocean. They have their own little, almost like a tide. There's an ocean type of sound. You can't see the other side, so it's really kind of cool. But really beautiful country. The people were super nice, and we got to eat some good food and just kind of decompress from life. So that was really good. I apologize for the banging in the background. It's outside, somebody's building something, and they don't really give a hootenanny that I'm in here trying to make a video for y'all. So we just got to kind of put up with it. But anyway, what else happened? So one day, the first night we were on vacation, we were in Nebraska, and my husband took Ellie and they went for a hike. And the weeds were pretty tall, but they were kind of hiking towards this lake. They were trying to get closer to the lake than where we were camped. And when they came back, she was just covered in ticks. And it was terrible. We had to pick ticks off of her literally for about an hour. Each of us sat there and just picked ticks. She must have had 100 just crawling on her. Luckily, they weren't embedded and we were able to just pick them off. But it was really gross, guys. And I don't recommend that to anyone. But, and unfortunately, now I have some concerns. We had ticks 3 times on the trip. I guess it's a thing as you go back east. Where I live, we don't run across it too often. Even in the mountains, they're just not as prevalent as they are as you go farther east. But she didn't have any massive amounts of ticks like that time, but we did find a few on her here and there that we were able to take off. But she's been pretty lethargic since we got back from vacation, and she has a little bit of a rash type of thing on her underbelly. And so I sent pictures to the vet and we chatted, and so I'm going to take her in a couple of weeks and just get her tested for any tick-borne diseases. Okay, so back to the picture. So what I'm going for here is using that lighter green in the upper left-hand corner and kind of into the center of the fish, because what I want to depict is like light coming from the upper left quadrant and kind of flooding in and highlighting the fish. And then I'm going to go into the lighter blue, and then I'm going to bring like an ultramarine type of blue kind of on that purplish side into the lower regions. And then on the bottom right hand corner we'll have like a deep indigo type of blue, just to kind of depict that it's deeper there and that the light is coming from that top left. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I apologize. I will try and zoom in when I feel like there's some detail that is important for you guys to see a little closer. Every time I try and zoom in, that I have to move the color number and the little girl. So I apologize. It's an editing error on my part. I put them in the wrong order. And since they're all in there now, when I zoom in, I lose them if, or I got to go into a separate segment and move them. Not that you care about any of this, but I want you to understand why I'm not as zoomed in as I normally am. As we go into more detail, I will try, but I kind of feel like we're just coloring the background at this point, so I hope that you can see and kind of bear with me here. So what else happened on our vacation? We were really blessed. I was totally expecting humidity, high heat, lots of mosquitoes. In short, I just kind of felt like I was going to be miserable the whole trip. And the weather was actually really, really nice for us. It was in the 70s the whole time. We had rain, I think, one day towards the towards the end of our trip. We had some rain, but it was just for like maybe a half a day, and we were just driving, so it didn't really matter. No, I take that back. One evening we had rain for about an hour. Other than that, it was actually really, really nice. And the bugs, short of the tick travesty, that was really our only experience with bugs. We didn't have too hard a time with mosquitoes our very last night in Nebraska on our way home. So yeah, I guess for those of you listening, you might not want to camp in Nebraska in July, but we didn't stay at the same spot on the way home. We stayed in a different spot, and we had a period of about an hour or two where the mosquitoes were horrendous, and we were really worried. And then the wind picked up and blew pretty strong, and that kept all the mosquitoes at bay, so we were able to open up the van. And we do have a big fan in there, of course the AC if we want to run it, and we have screens for the doors so that we can open up the doors and get good airflow. But this year we were given an air conditioner, believe it or not. One of Lonnie's customers gave us an air conditioner, so now it's just a matter of him moving the solar panels from the top and installing the air conditioner. So next year we'll have AC. So that'll be pretty nice. But overall, I was just super impressed with the weather and the fact that we weren't miserable. So, because living in Colorado, when people come and visit here, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so dry here. And I've lived in the West most of my life, so I never really notice it, but I do notice when I go to places that have a real high humidity, it just feels like I can't breathe. It's just thick, and I feel hot and sweaty all the time. I did my basic training in New Jersey, and it was kind of like that. The weather was, it was May when I started out and July when I left, and it was cold and humid when I started, and it was hot and humid when I left. And so I wasn't a big fan of the weather there, but maybe it had something to do with the fact that I was in basic training. I don't know. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by how nice it was. And we were able to go and have a couple of beach days, and we had some driving days. We went and saw some waterfalls that were really beautiful and went on a little hike. And on that hike, I saw a bear. It was probably 20 yards for me. No, yeah, maybe 30 yards. It was kind of like in the brush, and I was laughing to my husband afterwards because he was farther up the hike, or he had went farther up the hike and I had started back, and it was just kind of like on this little hiking trail, and there was tons of people, and people were walking by totally oblivious. And I did get him on film peeking his little nose out, and I was laughing to my husband because had I seen that, like out on my own on a hike or something like that, even if it was farther away, I would have been freaking out. But somehow I was like standing there filming it. So I'm like, okay, I'm an idiot. But he was just kind of foraging. It was a small bear. My bigger concern was, where was Mama Bear? Luckily, I didn't see her or encounter her at all. But, and he seemed totally, maybe, I don't know if he was just used to people being around, but really kind of oblivious to us. And of course, we weren't poking at him, or not poking, like we weren't close enough to do that, but we weren't trying to get his attention, or, you know, the people around me weren't being obnoxious or anything, so that was good. But it was kind of like just letting each other be. But I did laugh to myself, like I would have not been that calm in other circumstances. But now that it's over, it was pretty cool. So that was fun. We got to try a lot of food on the trip. Up in the UP, they call people in the lower parts of Michigan trolls, because there's a 5-mile bridge that separates the upper peninsula from the lower peninsula. And so the people that live under the bridge are called trolls. Now, I don't know if this is real life. I read this online, but I thought that was really funny. And they call tourists fudgies because they always want to try the fudge. So, of course, I had to try the fudge. And I have to say, it was amazing. It was truly amazing. My husband, who isn't even like the biggest sweet eater, he even thought it was amazing. So, I do recommend, if you get up there, give the fudge a go. So the other thing I tried was something called a pasty. Now, I was informed it is not a pasty, because that's something that you glue on your nipple. But it is a pasty. It's almost like a pot pie. It's a little handheld, like almost like an empanada that's filled with like a stew. And so we had those, and those were up in the upper peninsula. I don't know if they have them in the lower peninsula. They might have. We had Italy, so it's not like we were eating out a lot. And we just mostly bought things from roadside stands, and we make a lot of our own food. So, but I always like to try some of the more local fare, and they were really good. So I enjoyed that. We also had some homemade ice cream, and that was more of a touristy thing, but it was one of those, you know, specialty ice cream shops that was really yummy. So I really enjoyed that as well. So as I said, we had to go through Nebraska. I guess we could have, you know, went through Kansas or something, or even South Dakota to get home. But we went through Nebraska both times. So to reward myself for that adventure, in Omaha, they have a Dick Blick. And we don't have a Dick Blick near where I am. And so that was a really nice treat. I was able to go there and walk around the store and actually hold pencils in my hand and scribble them on little paper and that kind of stuff. So I bought a few goodies, so you'll see those in my haul. And I think you heard about them in my, if you watched my completed page. One of the things I bought was the Dick Blick brand of colored pencils. So I use those in my Disney coloring book, because if you followed the channel at all, you know that a lot of times off camera I just color in the Disney book, because it kind of challenges me to come up with learning how to create colors. So there's a picture on the left hand side and I try and duplicate it. And so I do that to challenge myself to learn how to create colors. And so I used the Dick Blick pencils, and I was actually pretty impressed with them. They were pretty reasonable. I think it was $50-ish. Oh gosh, I hope I'm telling you right. For 50 or 60 for their 72 count set, I think. I felt like they were a nice quality pencil, and so I decided to get them. You know, I'm not sure why I do this to myself, because I really like Prismacolor. I already own Polychromos, I own Luminance, I own Pablo, I own Chromaflow. To me, these are some of the, and Black Widow, to me, those are some of the nicest pencils out there. I guess for me, I am still kind of in searching for that one budget brand pencil that I can do some color alongs like I am right now, using pencils that everyone that, I feel like there's a lot of Prismacolor tutorials and color alongs out there. Not everyone likes Prismacolor, which I think is weird. No, I'm just kidding. I actually really like Prismacolor, and I think if I was probably just going to color on my own, I might just be content with maybe those and the Polychromos to add to them or something like that. But I don't know, maybe I'm just a collector junkie like the rest of you and have to have all the things just 'cause. But I do enjoy getting another brand of pencils and just seeing how are they different, what is the different palette, because I do have favorite colors like in Prismacolor, like gray, green, light, and I can't even think right now, but like there's like a beige color, ginger root, I think it is, that are just really nice colors that you just don't get in other palettes. And so I'm always in search of colored pencils for that one color that my goal down the road, which would not help most of you, but just for my own personal coloring, I think it would be fun to develop a set of like my favorite colors from multiple sets. So like I would have certain Prismacolors, I would have, you know, certain Polychromos. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just different color, you know, like a unique set to me that just has my favorites from different sets that I could pull from. And I'm not exactly sure how that would work, because I generally only color one set at a time, because most of the time that I'm coloring for y'all, and I think people would totally hate me if I decided to do a picture and I used 8 different brands of colored pencils, because I don't know how many people have all 8 different brands of pencils. So I try not to do that. I try to just pick one set, and then that way people can follow along if they want, and if they have another brand, it's easy to I wouldn't say it's easy to convert, but you can convert to whatever brand you want to use, because you're just comparing 2 sets of pencils, not 8 brands. So I probably won't be doing that in the future. As far as what I'm doing on screen right now, you can see I've brought in kind of the purpley blue and also like more of a blue, and then we've got the light blue going around the fish just to add a little bit of that kind of a halo effect around them and just to give the illusion of depth a little bit. So some of these little seaweeds are a little tricky to figure out, you know, what is the line for the backwater and what is the line for the actual seaweed. But anyway, I'm just going to continue to do that all around the fish. And so I'll try and think of something to blather on about. So anyway, back to Dick Blick. So it was a nice little store. It had all of the different things, and I wish I would have known I was stopping there before I went on vacation, because I have little, you know, like my swatch charts and stuff like that that tell me which colors I have in things like pan pastels. There are definitely some pan pastels I want to pick up, but I also own a few, so they're too expensive and it would be too hard to try and return them. So I was a little bummed that I didn't know. What colors I had, so I could have added a few to my collection. My wallet probably thanks me for not bringing my book, but you know, I'm kind of a big set kind of girl. I want all the colors in everything. Now I don't have anywhere close in the pan pastels. I think I have maybe 20, 15, something like that, maybe. I have one of those palette trays and then a stack. So, and I probably could have guessed, you know, my Tombow markers is another thing I'd like to fill out, but I never can remember which ones I have. And then the one time I decided, well, I don't have that many, I'll just buy some. Yeah, I bought 2 packs and I had both packs, so I had to return them. So now I don't do that anymore. But, you know, it would have been nice to be able to really have that and kind of flesh out in person which colors I wanted to buy, because they had them all the individual ones were there. And but I did pick up the rest of the luminance. So for those that don't know, I found a really good deal on Macari, Macari I think it was, which is kind of like an eBay, or, you know, one of those type of things where people are selling used things. And this lady had these luminance pencils, and she had pictures and stuff. So I took a chance because they looked pretty brand new. And in fact, when I got them, there was only one pencil that was actually, I don't feel like it was used, but the lead was broken. And when I sharpened it, it took me a second to get the lead to stay intact. So the very tip of it had gotten broken. And so it's maybe a half an inch shorter than the rest of them, which are all brand new. So I don't know if she just didn't like luminance, or I have no idea. But it wasn't the full set, which I always like the full set. So it's always been in my intention to fill it out. And so when I was there, I went ahead and picked them all out. So I've already told you I didn't have my swatch sheet. So you're probably asking yourself, Wendy, how did you do that? Well, let me tell you, I want you to picture the scene. So we're driving down the road and Wendy's madly Googling when we had internet, which we didn't always have internet driving down the road. You know, Googling what does the 72 set have and what are the other pencils that are missing. And so then frantically writing down the names of the pencils. So I found a site that had done the work for me, and they were like, oh, here's the newest colors that fill out, you know, from the 72 set. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I write all the names down. So you can imagine there's like, what is that, 28 colors. I write all the names down, and I'm all kinds of proud of myself. So I go walking into the store and I ask the lady, because there is a way that you can just buy the portrait kit. It's called a portrait kit, and then there's like 4 other pencils that go with that give you the 100 set. So I go in, and they don't sell in the Omaha store the portrait set, or at least they didn't have it like packaged all up. And so I had to sit there in front of the pencil thing, and you would think it'd be easy because I have all the names, right? But no, it really wasn't, because their display was all the pencils are labeled with the number. Well, I didn't have the number, so I had to pull every pencil out and read the name, and then check my list and be like yes or no. And they were just all up there. There was no rhyme or reason to it, so I had to literally pull out every pencil. So I spent a little bit of time in front of the luminance counter, but I was able to get them, and I was super excited. And they were, you know, once I had done all that, then I realized that it was more expensive than if I just bought the kit or the set, because pencils are always cheaper in a set, right? So I told the lady, I've got all these pencils in my hand, and I'm like, I just realized that, you know, this is going to be more expensive than buying them the other way, and I don't know if I really want to do that. And she was able to basically give me the same deal as if I had bought them in the set. It was slightly more. It was slightly more. But it wasn't like, okay, I need to go put all these pencils back because there's no way I'm paying that much extra. So I thought that was really nice. And what else did I get? Oh, I got, I had heard about, for those that have seen my blender video, one of the blenders that is not available, for whatever reason they don't sell it in Colorado. It's called Eco House, and it's kind of like a healthy, I don't know, maybe healthy is the best word. It's kind of like a Zest It, but it doesn't have that real strong citrus smell. But it's supposed to be a really good blender. I haven't even tried it. They had a small bottle of it for like $5, so I bought that because I had looked for that online, because a number of professional artists I had seen that they really like this one. And when you go to the website, everywhere but Colorado could buy it. Now, this is total speculation on my part, but I think it's because Colorado has the most insane sales tax rules of any state. So we don't have the highest sales tax, but Colorado is a very complicated state in terms of how you go about paying it, because you have to pay it to all the different cities individually, which is annoying. But anyway, back to the Eco House. It says it's an extra mild, low toxicity solvent. So I don't know. I haven't used it. To me, it smells a lot like Zest It. It has orange turpentines, which is what is used in the Zest It. But this is out of Canada. So I do know that Canada has a lot more stringent rules as to what they manufacture. So I thought it would be worth trying out. So I did buy that. And I bought the pencils, and then I filled out the luminance, and then I just looked and dreamed with everything else. Oh, I did buy one Chinese white Derwent drawing pencil. So everybody rants and raves about those pencils being of high quality. It's just that there's only, I don't know, maybe 24 of them, and they tend to be more, landscapey, not, like they don't have a big color palette. So, but I thought I would give their white a try because I've heard good things. Other than that, the rest of the time I just browsed and played and wished that there was an art store local to my area. Okay, so what else can we talk about? I am never one to not be able to know what to say, right? Like, no one that knows me is like, oh yeah, she's shy, she never knows what to say. But I get on these videos and it's just all so one-sided. I really wish that I had you guys asking me questions or prompting me somehow, or I could ask you questions and hear from you so that it isn't so terribly one-sided. So the weather has been crazy. I talked about how good the weather was on my trip, and it was, but probably for the last month here in Colorado, it has rained a lot. Yesterday was a high of, I don't know, maybe 70-ish, 68, 70, and with a little bit of rain. And this is the middle of July. Usually by now we have some night thunderstorms, but I was listening to the radio last week and it said that Colorado has gotten its annual rainfall in the month of May. That's crazy to me. The annual rainfall. What we normally get in a year, we got in a month. So I just thought that was really crazy, because then I saw a headline saying that in other parts of the world, other parts of the United States, it has been record highs for like heat waves. So I'm not sure what's going on with our weather. Maybe politicians are controlling it, and that's why it's a little out of whack. Okay. Just a little sass for you. But, well, let's talk about the picture again. So I'm bringing in kind of a more teal blue and just kind of blending it out with the other blue that other blue-green color that I was using. Just, I want it to be light, kind of around the fish, and then blending out towards that dark. Now, you could probably do a little better gradient than I did. Quite honestly, this was a couple of days post-vacation when I colored this, and I was kind of excited about these pencils. I had waited a while for them. They took like a month to get here, and so I was a little impatient in my coloring, which I tend to be a little bit anyway. you know, I watch people like Chris Chang color, and it always amazes me because she colors in the little circles and just this small little area, and then she changes colors and layers up, and she's got like 5 or 6 colors. And don't get me wrong, the effects are stunning. There's no doubt. I am just not that girl. I wish I was that girl, and I do hope to improve my coloring because I do think that that is something that could take my coloring to another level, is if I were to slow down a little bit and be a little more patient in terms of not just focusing on getting it done, but like spending days on a picture as opposed to hours. And and don't get me wrong, there's been colorings that I have done that with. And I do tend to sit down for long periods of time and color it as much as I can all in one sitting. That's my preferred way. My hand doesn't always agree with my my choice, but you know, it just. But if you notice, like I do jump around a little bit more than I would like, because I do feel like it's harder for the viewer. Not because I personally have a problem with jumping around. It's just how my brain works. I'm like, oh, I see this. It needs fixed right now. I think I do. I had ADHD when I was younger. I think I still have a mild version of it, though nowhere near what some people do. And it only manifests itself in certain ways. My son has full ADHD and literally has to work out on a regular basis to keep things in check and to, you know, keep his mental state clear. And his, you know, as a kid, we would, this was back in the days of Blockbuster, but we would go to a Blockbuster per se, and he would pick a movie, but then he would be unable to actually watch the movie he chose. He would watch it in probably 3 parts. And at one point I did have to put him on medication, and I do, you know, I struggled with that because I'm not someone that's like, oh, just take a pill for it, or oh, every kid that has energy has ADHD. He truly had it. He could not, he would be reading a book, totally focused on the book, but his feet would be moving or his hands would be moving. And we struggled with teachers that would try and make him stop those things, because then he started focusing on, okay, I can't move my hand, I can't move my hand, and struggled with the whole, you know, now he's trying to divide his focus between reading and between, no, I can't move. And we had some really amazing teachers that understood his need for movement. And when he got a little too ants in the pants, he could go get the hall monitor or the hall pass and go walk down to the principal's office or walk down and get a drink of water and come back. And it wasn't designed for, oh, an escape or whatever. They truly understood that if he didn't expel a little bit of energy, he wasn't going to be able to learn and he wasn't going to be able to focus. And so they had an agreement that as long as he was treating it with respect, not taking advantage of it, that was available to him, and he thrived in those classes. And then he also had teachers over the years that were convinced that this was some ploy to, I don't know, get out of something or just get away or whatever, and would refuse to allow that. And then, to my consternation, I tried to explain to them, I'm like, look, if he's acting up and you need to punish him, or you feel the need to punish him, please don't take away his recess in the sense of making him sit at a desk inside. Make him run laps. I'm okay with that. But allow him to go and expel some energy, because they didn't understand that his ants in the pants was not him trying to be, disruptive. It was literally almost an uncontrollable need to move. It was just excess energy. And so my discipline for him growing up, he did push-ups, he did sit-ups, he ran up and down our stairs, I'd make him run around the block. He didn't want to do those things. He wanted to play with his friends at recess. So this was a deterrent, because I hesitate to say punishment, but it was a deterrent to what he wanted to do. But instead, they would insist that he stay inside and sit at a desk. Now, you can imagine if the problem is excess energy and your solution is to not expend any of it, you're only setting yourself up for a bigger problem the next class, which was still their class. So, there were those teachers that I eventually came around to my way of thinking. I'm like, yeah, deter him. Give him a reason. Let him know that what he's doing is disruptive. Let him know that there are penalties. But don't exacerbate the problem by making him sit at a desk and not expend energy. So anyway, he's now 32 and has a son of his own and is a wonderful human being, and he's not on medication, but he does go to the gym still almost every day, and runs on the treadmill and lifts weights and does different things to control the amount of energy he has. He also drinks coffee. Coffee is for him almost like Ritalin was. It helps slow him down, whereas the rest of us might drink it to pep us up. It helps temper him down. So, sorry, not sure where that little rant went, but I told you, I get a little flummoxed as to what to talk about. Especially when we're coloring water and there just really isn't anything exciting to say other than, hey, blend these two pencils together to whatever gradient you prefer. Looking at this though, I will say I wish I would have taken a little more time, especially on the right hand side. There is kind of a little bit of a jarring between the dark and the light, but I did kind of want it to look like there was just like this one beam of light coming in. And I have some ideas for how to do it next time to maybe really emphasize the fact that there are rays of light coming in, maybe adding some white or leaving some white rays to actually depict that a little bit better, as opposed to just the color variances. So feel free to do that if you would like. At this point, you could probably just erase in some rays of light through that light green, and then when you color, just leave those a little lighter, and I think that would look pretty nice. So let's talk about the Black Edition pencils. What are you guys' thoughts on these? Now, I have seen everything online that's like, oh, they're like a polychromos, and then somebody else is like, no, they're like Prismacolor. I see Prismacolor a lot. To me, they are not like Prismacolor. They are more like an Arctics, or maybe even a Black Widow I could see. They have an initial smooth go down. So the first layer is pretty nice. And then I know I struggled on the Creative Haven paper. And I do think that some of that probably is simply the fact that it was Creative Haven paper. They do seem to layer a little better on this paper. So keep that in mind when you're coloring. If you want to know what I'm talking about, if you look at my completed pages, I did this just a couple of days ago. Now, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, wow, July 4th was a long time ago, then just look for completed pages June 2023. And in there, I did a page using these pencils in the Main Street book. And I really like that book. And I actually had just done another page using, oh, I can't remember now, maybe the Cezanne pencils. And I show the difference. And no, they're not the same picture, but you can see the difference in vibrancy. And I like my pages to have a lot of color, kind of like how this one's going to be. And, you know, no one ever accuses me of subtlety in my art, but I love those delicate paint pictures. You've all seen them where they're done in these ivories and light tan and just a beautiful soft blue, and they just look gorgeous. And when I do them, they don't look anything like that. So, you know, it's something that I'm working on. I tend to be a touch heavy-handed at times, and so that can really play into that as well. It's something that I hope to grow as an artist a little bit. But as you can see, the difference, like, some people would have been done with the coloring that was already there, that dark blue. I wanted it to be more filled in than that. I want it to look more like it was painted with acrylic or something. I don't generally like the little white dots. Now, sometimes I do. There are certain things, like if I'm painting wood or if I'm coloring wood, sometimes I like it. Sometimes it just lends to the painting or the drawing, the coloring. I don't know, Wendy, you can't even talk. Sometimes it lends to the art that you're coloring to have it have a little bit of those white dots to add that textured look. But in this case, I really wanted it more saturated than that. And so here I'm just kind of bringing that blue in just a little bit, even just some little streaks here and there, because when I take my next pencil and I go over all of them, they will blend in and they won't look like the little lines that are happening right now. Because here you can kind of see they're a little bit lined. Now feel free, if you want, you can blend this whatever way works best for you. You can be a little more controlled about it. To me, water has a little bit of motion, and like I said, when I go in with my next pencil, it's going to blend it out anyway, so I'm not worried about it. But you do whatever works best for you. I just want to add a little bit of this blue color to where we don't have quite as stark of, like, here's a blob of green and here's some dark blue. And, you know, we can do a little better job blending, but this is just me adding a little bit here and there. So this is the dark, not the very darkest, because I'm going to go in with almost I guess it is a brown into the centers, but this is my darkest green that I'm going to use. And I just go maybe a third to a half a way up on each of these leaves. And each one, I'm not being super careful. I'm just kind of going in, I'm leaving a few ragged edges because every leaf is going to be different, so you don't have to worry so much about making everything identical. I apologize that my hand is more in the way than it is to the side. Next, I'm going in with a little bit of a lighter green, and I'm just going to be adding to each of those little leaves. And once again, I apologize. Big ol' hand right in the way. It's so hard because you film and you think you're capturing it because, you know, your camera is directly overhead, but the problem is it's a little directly overhead. So when I'm doing things that are a little bit more to the left of the center of my body, my hand tends to get in the way. So I apologize. But if you look at those last two, I'm just scratching some green there. And nothing, you're not missing any hot technique or anything. But I'm just adding this lighter green to maybe the next third of the leaf. This is a personal preference. Feel free to add more of one color or less of another color when you see it all done. I have no idea why I didn't do all 3 strands at the same time. I guess because I wanted to make it more difficult for myself to edit. But anyway, now I'm going in with an even lighter green, and I'm not going all the way to the tip because, spoiler alert, I'm going to be using a little bit of a cream color on the end. Once again, this is an optional thing. You could do it all in this lighter green. You could take this all the way out to the tip. You could leave it white. I think it looks good white. So you could actually bring your darker colors up, you know, deeper into the leaf. It's really whatever you'd like. You could also bring in like an ochre yellow, would look really nice instead of this lighter green. So play around with your colors and experiment. I thought just adding the little bit of cream to the end, it gives it almost a yellow tint and just brightens it up a little bit. Okay, so here I'm going to come in with that cream. I don't know if it's cream. I'm just calling it that. It's a very pale yellow. But I think if you're using other pencils, you know, your next lightest one. Antique linen, buff titanium. I just feel like it really kind of brightens up these leaves and just adds a little bit of oomph to this corner. That is a technical coloring word, oomph. come to me for all of your artistic terminology needs. Yeah, I have no idea why I didn't do that third strand. So I may speed up the video for this next set. So here I'm just going to add a little bit of the darker green right there along the inside edge, going in with the second green, and I don't go in with the third green at all. Okay, so I go back in with the darkest green again, and I add that to the inside. Sorry, someone's at my door. One moment. Okay, so that was annoying. It was literally somebody wanting to sell pesticide services, which I get it, everyone has a job. But then when I say, no thank you, I'm not interested, especially since I have a no solicitation sign on my door, I feel like you should say, thank you very much and walk away. But they never do. Oh, I understand, ma'am. No, completely. But let me tell you more. Do you guys ever get that? Is it just me? I think I'm a little more, I don't know. I try and be friendly about it, but I'm like, I have a no solicitation sign, and I've let you know completely, absolutely, 100% not interested. Okay, so back to the picture. So here I'm going in with this, I would call it like a sepia color, and just adding it all in to the very bases and along the stem of these leaves. And then I'm going back in with I believe this is not the darkest color, but the next color. So not the lightest, not the darkest, the Three Bears green, and the Goldilocks of green, that's what it is. And I'm just blending it all out. I really like how this looks. I feel like the brown brings in the value that I'm looking for, that really makes it more interesting than just having that darker green. Tell me what you think. But sepia is kind of a go-to color for me for a lot of things like that, and sometimes I literally apply it as my base layer in colors that I feel like I want the actual color, but it's maybe not dark enough for me. And I find that it's pretty universally good. Not always, like you wouldn't want to put it under cream, but at the same time, I just find that it's really nice. So yeah, so here I'm going in with the lightest of the greens and blending it out again. So that was my mid green. Just until you like how it looks. And then I do believe I go back with no, it looks like I'm moving on. Maybe when I do the third one, I go back and touch it again with the yellow. I think I do. But we're just gonna repeat the process here. So I will let you get on with that. Okay, so next up we're going to color this little plant over here. And just going along the lines that the artist has given me, I am just adding some darker red veins, for lack of a better word. I'm actually pressing fairly hard. I'm just trying, I want there to be a visible line when I'm done of the red. And then I'm just trying to decide what part is red, what part is going to be, you know, my orange. Where do I want these colors to lie? So in the end, I determined a little bit in the shadow area of the center, and then along the underside where there would be a shadow. So what is your favorite summertime drink? Are you guys iced tea? Do you like lemonade? Is it only water? Are you pop or soda pop drinkers? Like, what's your thing in the summertime? So I have been trying a product called Element, and it is an electrolyte drink, and I'm liking it so far because I'm trying really hard. I have a Diet Pepsi habit. It's definitely a full-blown addiction. You know, even when I drink, I would have rum and Diet Coke, or rum and Diet Pepsi actually. But so that's been my drink of choice for quite a while. And I know that the fake sugars aren't good for you. I don't like the taste of regular pop, and nor do I want the calories of regular pop, and or soda, or whatever it is, Coke, whatever it is in your neck of the woods. And I struggle because I really like the carbonation of drinks, and I'm not a big hot drink fan. So like to just drink tea, you know, like green tea and warm tea is just not something I really enjoy. And so I've always kind of struggled to break this habit. I've tried what I call the fizzy waters, and they're okay, but quite honestly, they leave me a little thirsty, which is kind of ironic since you would think I was drinking them, you know, to not be thirsty. But I don't know. And I'm okay with iced tea, but iced tea actually affects me stronger than, say, coffee. Sorry, our compressor just kicked on. Periodically it does that. Usually when I'm trying to film a video, I find that's when it decides it really needs to recharge itself. So at this point I'm just kind of filling in, blending back out. And then I'm going to go back in with the same colors and just keep adding and blending. Okay, next up is these big leafy things. I don't know what they are. So, when in doubt, color it pink, I guess is the Matrix. Yeah, so, I'm just using these lines as where the veins are, and I'm taking my darker pink and putting them in where those lines are, and then using the light pink around it. This is almost a purple color, I believe. Yeah, it's kind of like a, I don't know, maybe a magenta or something. Okay, so adding in a little bit of that cream that we had on the tips of the of the leaves there on the left. Just adding that in. And where it blended, it kind of created a little bit of a coral, and I decided that I kind of like that look. So I kind of like the look of that coral that it created, so I decided to bring in kind of an orangier color here. Just kind of going maybe just a little in between those deeper veins, and then bringing that color in there on the sides. Not going in too deep, just keeping it to the edges. And then I'm going to come in with a yellow. And just blending that all out. At this point where I stop, you could actually go back in with that cream and blend it just a little bit more. I think I do at the end, at the very end. I always kind of touch up where I miss, and kind of looking at it in this picture, it feels a little unfinished to me right now. Imagine that, Wendy being impatient and moving on. Shocking, I know. So there we started with our magenta, added our pink, now we're going in with our yellow. And then back in with our orange, I think. Let's see, yep, okay. A little bit of an orange just on the tips. And once again, you could take it and blend it out just a little bit more at this point. We'll see if I do. So I guess I decided to go back in with a little bit more pink on the edges. Okay, the logical thing would have been to finish the third leaf. But no. Actually, I just didn't know what color I wanted to do that, so I moved on to an area where I did. So here I go in with my red, and I'm just kind of doing the edges. I'm going to go all around the edges here. And just kind of randomly pulling in some red along the way. So not going a solid band, just kind of every third or fourth line pulling in the red. Now I'm going in with the orange, and I actually go over the red. Just using little circles and just kind of going completely over that red on both sides. Then bringing in a yellow and kind of overlapping that orange all the way almost into the red, not quite in the farthest reaches of the red, but just kind of blending over what I've done with this yellow. And do you notice how it's starting to take on a little more curvy look where that white is? Now you could leave it white if you wanted to. I don't think the white looks bad. It makes it look shiny, which in animals and fish can sometimes just really bring them to life. But I chose to go over it with the yellow. And now I'm going to repeat the process here. This time I'm going a little farther out with the red because I realized that that yellow was maybe a little bigger area, like that little highlight area was just slightly bigger than I wanted it to be. But you can really tell how this makes it more of a 3D looking when you do it this way. And once again, bringing the orange in, going over the red, and see how I went a little deeper into the yellow. I still want to leave that area though that's lighter. And so I went in with the highlight and then go back over it, the entire thing with this orangish yellow. Then back again to the red. So I'm going to be putting a couple of polls, I guess, or at least a question on my community page. So the Wind Down Wednesday, people chose that they wanted to see a technique as opposed to picking one coloring book and coloring the entire book in it, or coloring the entire book as a channel, which I'm fine with. But I would love to hear from you. What techniques would you like? Do you want techniques like the shading that I, on leaves? Do you want flowers? Do you want glass? Do you want snow? I thought in my mind that I would probably do something like, since it's summer, I would try and show you how to color things that are maybe more summer driven, and then as we move into fall, we'll tackle pumpkins and we'll tackle night scenes and maybe smoky fog or something like that. And some of these I might be learning along with you, but I'd really like to hear what kind of things you would like me to cover. And then I'll also have a poll. I'm going to pick 2 or 3 coloring books. And I'm going to start doing this, I think. I haven't decided, because sometimes I just get a whim and I decide randomly one day, like I'll think in my head I'm going to do 3 different, color alongs, and then suddenly something like this pops up and I just decided I really wanted to see about the vibrancy of these pencils, and so I thought I want kind of an underwater type of thing, because fish and tropical always, like, you can do whatever you want, right? You can have red fish, you can have blue fish, you can have green fish, right? Dr. Seuss had it right. Red fish, blue fish. But anyway, so I randomly decided to do this Rita Berman page. This wasn't something pre-scheduled in my mind. I love the channels that I see. Shells Coloring, I think it is. I saw one of her videos once, and she's like, okay, so here are the 7 pictures that I'm going to do in a month. And I'm thinking, wow, you have that all planned out. You are so organized. That is not really how I work, but I thought what I would do, I do want this channel to be about the content that you guys want. And so I think I will put up a couple of options. And I'm probably going to vacillate month to month, or color along to color along. So like something like this it's a smaller book and it's a smaller page. I can do it in one session. Whereas if I take on a Kirby Rosanna's 2-page spread, that's probably going to be 2 or 3 videos, which I'm totally fine with, and would love to do another Kirby page or another page like that or another book like that. But we'll probably alternate. So look for me to start putting polls, and I'm going to say, do you want to see like Leela Dooley's The Flower Year, or do you prefer birds, birds, what is it, Birds in the Forest, or do you, and so I'm going to put those kind of things up, and then whichever one wins each month is what I'll do. I don't know that I'm going to go so far as to allow you to pick the actual page. At some point I might do a Patreon where people will be able to have that option and will be able to tell me specifically. They'll vote on the pencils that I use, they'll vote on, or the medium, whether it be watercolor pencils, Inktense, Neocolors, Distress ink, whatever. But for now, I'd like your input on those 2 things. So feel free at any time, if you have a book that you've been wanting to work in and you're intimidated to do it, pop it in the comments and let me know. And if I have the book, I'll consider it. And if I don't have the book, I'll consider it. So I'll consider buying it. So yeah. So once again, I'm doing the same thing here, just bringing in the darker on the edges, leaving the light in the middle, just to add that little pop of color. I haven't been paying attention, but if I remember right, I leave off the red, and I'm just using the orange and the yellow, the orange, the yellow, orange, and the yellow in this combination. Here I'm going in very similar to before, bringing in the dark right there in the center. So I guess this one's kind of the opposite as the last 2 that we've done. This one I'm going in with my darkest color along the veins in the middle, and then bringing that orange outward a little bit, and then following it up with the lightest, the yellow. Just for a little variety. So this is the yellow orange, and each time I go back over the color prior to it, that way I can get a good blend. And then I go in with this the brightest pure yellow here on the edge. Then I go back in with my darker red and just repeat the process. So I did a swatch chart for this, and that is up on my Ko-fi shop. And I did one with, so I have the little square color with, our numbering system, right? The 1 through, how many is there? 100. So 1 through 100. And then below that, I have the number that's on the pencil. And I put that on there. And then below that, I did one that is just blank. It's just an open box. And then on the other version, because there's 2 versions, the black version, because these are designed to be used on black, I went ahead and created a box below that number that's on the pencil. I am so sorry. So I created a box that was right below the number that's on the pencil that will be all in black so that you can swatch it on black. But I wanted to do 2 versions because I know some people don't want to waste the ink on the black. Maybe they're never going to use black. They're never going to use these on black, I should say. So they're like, I don't want that. And then other people want it. So that's how I did this one. Now on some of these, not on this one because I chose to do the black, but on some of my other basic pencils that don't have colors, like I can't remember, either the Dick Blick or the Amazon Basics, one of the two. So I'm pretty sure the Amazon Basics don't have a name as well. So when I do the swatch sheets, I've been debating if I want to create my own name for them. I sometimes, I can remember color combinations better if they have names. So for this, I can't tell you what color combinations any of these are. So if I went back and looked, yeah, I could look them up and I could be like, okay, that is number 91, that is, number whatever, but it just doesn't stick in my head. Whereas I can remember Tuscan red, permanent red, yellow orange, and lemon yellow, or something like that. I'm totally making up names. But I'm just saying, if that's the combination, I can remember that a little bit better. And so I'm debating on having some names, but then I'm thinking, what if you guys don't like the names I give them, and is it going to be confusing because they don't really have names? And so let me know what you think about that too. Do you think that names would be helpful even if they're our own made-up names? Or would you prefer that your chart just have the numbers? Or do you think I should have both options? It's not really that hard for me to have both options. It's a little more work, but it's a one-time extra work thing, not anything that's going to, be crazy. So let me know in the comments what you think about that as well, because I am trying to find a budget set of pencils that becomes maybe my go-to budget set, so that hey, this is a set that we do more color alongs with. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this all out because I'm a big believer you can't please everybody. And so there's going to be times when someone will have this book, but not these pencils. And the next time somebody's going to have the pencils, but not the book. Or vice versa. or they don't have either, or they have both, but they just have no desire to color this page. So I realize at some point it just has to be something that I enjoy doing, and so I always want to allow myself a little bit of grace with that, because I do know that since I started the Wind Down Wednesday, I have really tied my hands to a specific time and day that I'm going to post a video, whereas there's a part of me that kind of likes the idea of being a little more loosey-goosey with it, meaning you might get 3 like you did this last weekend, where I did a flip through, a color along, and my completed pages. And then, or, Wind Down Wednesday was Wednesday, and then I think Friday I did a flip, and then Sunday I did the completed pages. So I'm not sure how to proceed or what I'm going to do. I'm just trying to get a feel for what everyone else likes, and some people have told me what books they have and what pencils they have, and that's helpful to me, so that I know that at least once in a while I'm going to be doing something that works for them. Back to the picture here. So here's where I bring in the sepia, and I'm going along those edges, and you can see how that just really adds, in my opinion, a lot to the page. So I thought it looked fine before, but when you add this, it just really adds that little extra dimension by adding a darker value. I talked about that in my color theory, but it's important to have really dark darks and really light lights in your picture. Now, in true I would say like art school type of stuff, so like paintings and different things, they want stuff that's really balanced. So they don't want the really high contrast. They want a nice smooth blend from dark darks all the way to light lights with things balanced. For me, I want my pages to look good, and I didn't go to art school. I'm not going to art school. I'm not selling my stuff. So I color my pages the way it looks good to me. And sometimes I think art teachers would probably roll over in their grave looking at it. Well, I guess if they were dead. If they weren't, they'd be cringing. But, and then other times I think I follow the rules fine. But I just color the way I like, but I will tell you that I do like pages that have good contrast in them. It doesn't have to be everywhere on the page. So I've seen people that color every single element, and they have that. So you see how the red to the yellow to the orange, they have that gradient, and it has that broad value range. I've seen people that color literally every single element on a page like that, and it can be jarring when you see it. I've seen other people that can pull it off. So you do you. So here I'm going in and I'm putting in like the darker purpley colors up next to the little black tip, and then kind of blending it out with the magenta and the pink is essentially what I'm doing. And I'm going to repeat this for each one. So I'll leave you to that. Okay, moving along, we're going to go down to these fins. I'm going to use, I believe, the same colors, but I'm going to go in with the purple up here closest to the black line, because this is where the darkest shadows are. So that's going to be my darkest color. Sorry for my hand in the way. There's a lot of moving parts to videos, including my hand. It's always moving. No, but seriously, there's just so many things to try and think about when you're filming. And so I will get better as we go. Then I go back in with that same magenta that I used, at least on the big flowers up above. I haven't been paying too much attention. Once again, I don't pay too much attention to numbers. I'm good with numbers, but as far as just recalling the numbers, not so much. But I'm going to put those in, then I'm going to go in with a pink and kind of blend it out. So what do you guys think about Christmas in July? Is this something that you're like, yeah, I'm all about it, I think it's a great idea, or no, don't do it, I hate Christmas in July? What are your thoughts on that? I see a lot of people talking about doing some Christmas pages in July, and I don't want to miss out on any trends. So let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in doing. Maybe I probably wouldn't do more than one Christmas page in July, just because I have some other things that I want to do. But I would be open to doing one page, and most likely it would be a Teresa Goodrich page. Let me see. Christmas books do I have? I have trying to read sideways here. Thought I had. Okay, so I have Country Christmas. That is the only Christmas book I believe I own, which is pretty interesting. I thought I owned another one, but I don't think I do. That being said, being the little collector that I am, I would be open. So if you guys have a recommendation for a Christmas book or something like that, let me know in the comments. Let's just even see if you want to do a Christmas page. So I will add that to my questions. It sounds like I'm going to have 3 community questions. I'm going to have, do you want to do a Christmas in July page? I will have probably maybe 3 coloring books that I'm considering doing a color along in. I'll have you vote on that, and then I am going to put a thing saying please drop me in the comments what you would like to see me color in terms of techniques, because I have a video due in 2 days for this, and I don't have anything. I might have to do a bye week. I don't know. I just want to do stuff that you enjoy. So let me know, please, please bail me out. So while I was blabbing, we went around this entire fish, and kind of put a little bit of a purple border. We had a little bit of hot pink wings, or not wings. He's not a bird, Wendy. Hot pink fins, and I will continue this purple border around the fish here. So I'll leave you to that. So next we're going to go into this little center here, and I'm going to use a variety of yellow, orange, and orange. And once again, doing it exactly the same way. We're going to put our colors in. The darkest is going to be around those little half circles, with the lightest being closer to the back of them. So I'm going to leave you to it, because there isn't a whole lot to say about lather, rinse, repeat. Okay, I'm back. So let's work on our leaves a little bit. So the same kind of principle applies as we did up above. We're going to use our darker green on the right hand side of the leaf, because with the idea that that ray of light is coming in from the left. So that would cast our shadow on the right hand side of these seaweeds or whatever they are. And then we go in with our mid-tone, kind of blending it out, leaving a little sliver on the side. Not much, just not even a third. And here's where I debate and I go, yeah, I want to bring that yellow orange back into these as well. So coming in on that highlight side and just adding that orange in. To me, this makes it a lot more interesting than just, just the green. And here I kind of experiment, like, hey, does it work better to put my highlight in first and then put my darker tone in? Because I found that I didn't leave much room on those other ones. Sorry, gotta stay hydrated. So I just started a low carb diet, and I just really am unhealthy right now. Just not feeling great. Here's the thing, I shouldn't say I don't feel great. I just always feel like I don't have any energy. And I've discussed this before. I battle with depression. And so I'm trying to eliminate all the processed foods, all the sugar from my diet completely. And I was actually really good. We went to a wedding this weekend, and it was difficult because we were there and, they had cake. Well, technically they had different cupcakes for everyone, which I thought was really smart, because then you don't have the whole, trying to cut one crazy cake. But they were obviously high-end bakery cakes, and everyone was oohing and awing over how good they were. So that was a little difficult, but not drinking, and not saying I'm never gonna drink or I'm never gonna eat anything like that, but I'm really trying to make more of a lifestyle change than to do a diet or just to lose weight, because I do need to lose weight. But mainly I just want to have more energy and I want to feel good. And I've kind of struggled with some heartburn issues. Here I'm going in with the sepia, and just on the back side there, just to add that dimension and just give it a little depth. I really like how this looks. I just think it really adds a lot to the leaves when you do that. They just really come to life. But anyway, so trying to drink a lot more water and a lot less Diet Pepsis, but I'm also giving myself some grace too. I think it's important that you find that balance between, I think sometimes we battle with perfection to where, and this applies in art as well as our diet, as well as in life in general. It's almost like we're so afraid to work in our coloring books that we're so afraid that they're not going to turn out exactly the way we want them to, that we do nothing in them. And I think it's been that way with my diet too. It's like, well, I messed up and I started this diet actually before, I say diet, started this lifestyle, trying to change my thinking. I started this lifestyle before I went on vacation, and I had done it just over 2 weeks. And I started when my husband was out of town. He was on a fishing trip, and so it was just me. And it was kind of easier because then I didn't have to deal with what he was eating or wanted to eat or anything like that. And, I made it through a few days of the vacation, and then, I don't know, we would drive all day, and we'd get to our camp spot, and we were relaxing and just enjoying the view and enjoying just being with each other and spending some good quality time. And we often would have like a rum and coke. And so, I kind of succumbed to that, and I was okay with that because, you know what? Life is about living, and it's not about living it perfectly. But at the same time, I was more mindful in general, and I didn't throw all caution to the wind and just eat whatever I wanted, but I also did try the pasty and I did try the ice cream, and I'm glad I did. And now I'm back at it again. And that's something that I've always struggled with. I do a little better the all or nothing approach. But with eating, you can't just be like, oh, I'm not going to eat anything. But I'm not very good. I remember one vacation I bought these. They were like a graham cracker cookie that had a marshmallow and then it was covered in chocolate. And I really liked those, so I bought this package of them. And there was like 12. So we were on a week of vacation. And this is how my husband chose to do it. He was like, we'll each have one a day. So each day we would have one. And he would eat it nice and slow. I was never quite so slow. But honestly, it almost killed me. I was just like, what are we doing? I would eat that one and I would want another one. One wasn't enough for me. But he had this system and he was he was kind of proud of it, and I was like rolling with it because that's what you do when you're going to spend the week in a small vehicle with somebody. Is you got to roll with it a little bit. But I found it very difficult. I know that had he not been involved in that, those cookies would have been gone on day 2. I would have eaten 3 or 4 each time. Just because, what's the point if you're going to eat a cookie, right? Now, that being said, I'm not a huge sweets eater, so it's not like I can't not eat sweets. But if I have them and I'm eating them, I don't want one bite. I'm like, that's just not really how I how I work. That isn't how I got overweight, was by being, self-control and whatever. So I find that I do better, like I said, if I don't eat sweets at all. That is easier for me than actually sitting down and being like, okay, I'm only going to eat one Oreo. No, that's probably not going to happen. But I can eat no Oreos, which I know maybe for some people you were like, what is wrong with you? But I just find it easier to do none than to try this whole moderate yourself kind of thing. It doesn't work for me very well. So I'm finding that by severely cutting back my carbs and not eating any of the processed foods, not eating any of the stuff I struggle with, salty stuff like chips, absolutely love that stuff. Cannot say no to that stuff. If I, have you ever tried to eat 5 potato chips? No, no. Like no sane person ever does that. I I hate those little individual bags of chips because I'm like, they just arouse my appetite without bedding her back down. You ever watch that movie, Oh Brother? That's where I got that from. But um, I just I just can't. So it's just easier for me to say no to chips in general than to try and eat 5 or 10 chips and no more. And I gotta say, I'm feeling better. I've lost a little bit of weight, and I feel like I'm thinking clearer. I feel like I sleep better. So I'm seeing a lot of positive changes. So I'm telling you all this because I hope that you're going to hold me to some accountability and say, hey, Winnie, how's that diet going? Or how's that lifestyle change going? To see how I do. Because making big changes like this that are long term are difficult. And so I need some help. Okay, so next up is these flowers. And looking at the picture in retrospect, there's a lot that I would change on these. There's just so much more that you could do that I didn't do. And I think part of it was by this point, I was a couple hours in and I probably should have just set this aside at this point and came back to it because I was tired and I was starting to get a little rushy. I wanted to finish this page and I don't know. These flowers they're not very good. So feel free to color them any way that you want. I like the colors kind of, but I didn't like that the black went over, or not the black, the pink went over the black and left the lines kind of murky, like where those black dots are in there. And I did go over them with purple, but I felt like the way the pink and the purple blended just didn't really do it for me, if that makes any sense. I'm going to leave you to color these. Like I said, you may want to fast forward and look at the ending and see before you follow along if this is how you want your flowers to look or not. And I don't know, I guess they don't look bad. They're just, to me, it looks like I just colored a circle in the middle of them and called it done. So anyway, I'll leave you to it and I'll see you after the flowers. Okay, so here we're doing our little starfish. And I just go over really lightly with kind of that coral color. It's up to you if you want to color over those little doodads. I actually end up putting a little dab of Posca pen on them when I'm done, so you probably don't have to be quite as careful as I was being here. But I'm going to come in with the lighter color, and then I'm going to go around all the edges with a darker color, and then one more time around the edge with yet a darker color. And then you see those little grooves in there. That too is going to have a little bit of a darker color just to give it that feeling of depth, to give it to where it doesn't look like a flat object. It looks like a three-dimensional object. So I'll leave you to it. Okay, I'm back. And if you're still here, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. We are nearing the end. We've just got some final touch-up stuff to do. Not touch-up, but just some small stuff. So if you've hung with me this long, I appreciate you. But I'm just going in with my colors here, and once again, just like we did before, just adding some of these darker tones to the side, blending them in to the middle, leaving that middle pretty light colored. Now there is an obvious vein going through this. I don't know why, but this leaf looks like a tongue to me. Does it look like a tongue to you? Maybe it's because I'm coloring it the color of a tongue. Maybe that's why I chose the color. I don't know. But it just looks like a tongue to me. But anyway, so we're going in and just kind of blending these colors in. I do have a piece of paper underneath because as I get to the edge, I do find it easier to go off the page, and if I have a piece of paper, it just catches that little extra color. But here I'm going in and just darkening up the edge. Just making it all a little more 3D. So I'm not sure if I just deleted a little piece of footage here or what, but basically I just go in with that light yellow, just the same yellows that we've been using, that cream yellow, and then kind of the, so let's see, they'd be 789, 701, and then this one, right now I'm using a 701, but the other one I believe is 722 that I use for the darker kind of 3D type of effect. And then I don't know exactly what these are, these little teardroppy things. So I just colored them in the same color schemes as I've been using, the reds, the orange, the pinks. You know, looking at this coral, that yellow coral, I think it would look really good to go in with like that 722 or even a darker tone like 723, and just put dots on it just to depict a little texture. I may do that after this color along. Cheat and just kind of add those little things on there. I think that would look really good. I don't know why I didn't. Well, I do know why, because at this point I was 2 hours and 45 minutes into this and I was wanting to be done, I think. Does this ever happen to you? Or are you a good girl and put it aside for a little while? I know many of you might not be in a position to have this kind of time to color and will have to do this in, 30-minute increments. I raised 2 boys. I had a full-time job. I've run 3 businesses. I'm still running businesses now, so I get it. But I'm just curious if you have ever pushed through when you know you probably should have been like, well, I'll come back to it when I'm fresh. I do know that sometimes I am, I'll call it motivated, because I want to get this out on the channel for you guys, because I'm eager to share it. And so by being so eager to share it, I don't properly take the time, because I think personally, if you can take all of your pictures that you color them to what you call complete, and then fold the book, put it aside, and don't look at it for a couple of days, and then go back and take a look at it, and then do your final edits to it. I find that when I do that, my pictures improve a lot, because it's just like looking at that coral right now. I'm like, oh, I could put that on there for the texture, and I see where I could have done a better job blending that leaf up in the top right hand corner, or spend a little time on this or that, some of which I may do. I don't know, because it has been a few days since I did this, since I actually colored, and now I'm just doing the editing. Here I'm putting that sepia in for the shadowing and just to add a little darker area. Once again, I'm always impressed by how well this works, and I'm going to follow it up through that entire plant. Maybe not right at this minute, I can't remember, but I definitely do. Okay, so using that darker sepia, just going in along the edges of this starfish and adding those darker tones into the curves and along the edges. I really like how it makes everything pop. And then I go along each one of these little circles, especially on this bottom right hand side, and I'm adding in those darker tones. Just adding a little shadowing. It kind of makes those little nodules on the starfish kind of pop off the page. So here I sharpen my pencil and then promptly break it. But having a sharper edge definitely helps. You could also do this if you find it unwieldy with colored pencil. This particular thing, they make sepia pens, and you could use a little fine liner. I probably should, because I'm coloring it like I'm about half drunk. And I promise you I haven't been drinking, as we discussed earlier. But I do feel like that kind of helps just make them pop off the page a little bit more. When I add the white at the end, it definitely makes a difference. Okay, so next up, let's tackle our scales up here. I'm going to go in with some yellow, and I'm not being super careful to get every little bit, because I'm going to be bringing other colors in as well. Okay, so next up I'm going to bring in some orange, and I'm just going to put it on the edge there. So on both sides, kind of like we did before, you put your darker on there and then you leave your highlight in the middle. Okay, next up is our little fish up here. We're going to be using some of the same colors we've used throughout. Our yellow, then we're going to bring in some orange, a little bit of red. I know, you're shocked, right? I like using some of the same colors for different elements and using them for different things in, you know, like with the fish or whatever, bringing it in, having it in the plant, having it in the tree. Maybe not the entire thing, but I think it makes a big, it makes your picture more continuous. No, wait, what's the word? It adds continuity to your pictures and cohesiveness. I think that is probably a better word, but I do feel like it makes a difference. You can use more colors if you do that, because your eye doesn't feel quite so like, oh, like yet another color, like overwhelmed, right? You ever see a picture and you just don't even know what to look at? There's so much. And, you know, in this picture I have a little of that going on. I could have made all of the plants and the little leaves and the smaller fish blend in a little bit more into the background. And I do that. I do that with the small fish down below. I use similar colors to the water because I feel like it was very close to my main image and I didn't really want it to compete. Here I'm adding those dark highlights and you can really see the difference that it makes. Now down here, this fish is almost touching our focal fish, right? And so I chose to do some blue colors, and while they're a little different than the watercolors, the fish stands out, but it doesn't pop out like the yellow one does. And I feel like the yellow one on the top kind of blends in with the yellow of the seaweed and doesn't take away from our main fish. Now that being said, if I wanted to truly just 100% highlight this fish, I could have done all of my coral and my leaf, you know, the leaves and all of that stuff in darker tones or cooler colors and done the fish more in the warm colors like I did. Now the purple is kind of a cooler color, but generally speaking, the reds and the yellows are the warmer colors and they bring the image forward, whereas the blues and the purples kind of push back into the background. Like, look at this fish that I'm doing right now. He just kind of blends in. If you look at him, he's distinct enough that you recognize he's a fish, you recognize, you know, that he has different colors, but he's not jumping out at you by any means. And that is one of the things, that's one of the reasons why I chose the colors that I did for that fish, is I wanted him to blend in a little bit more. There's a part of me that says I wish I wouldn't have put that darker color on there. I kind of liked that light blue as kind of the highlight. In the end, I think it turned out fine. It almost looks like it's a you ever seen those neon fish that almost, they look electric almost? That's kind of what that looks like to me. But that being said, I did like the lighter blue. Just watching it as I as I color in hindsight. This is that magenta color that I used on the bigger leaves on the in the right hand corner, and also in the fish. So as we finish up this fish, I just want to say I really appreciate you hanging with me on this color along, and I apologize for I feel like my numbers, they're not the same size, they're not the same shape, they're not in the same place. This isn't normally how I like to do it. I went in and this was a very long video and it had a lot of colors to it. And so I put in all the colors first, not thinking about the fact that I zoom in when I edit so that you can see better. Well, when I zoom in to the picture, I lose the placement of the little number, which is in another part of the editing. So then I have to go back in and manually move it. And so therefore, when I move it so many times, that changes where they are. And then sometimes I'm making them bigger or smaller to fit into the zoomed space. Like right now, I'm zoomed out, and so it has a very consistent size and place. When I zoom in, then that number looks humongous and it looked way out of proportion and it didn't fit on the screen, and it was, it's one of those things where I'm always battling because I haven't perfected my system. But I'm always kind of battling in this situation, like, should I be zoomed in more right now? Or is it better with the numbers? And, that kind of thing. Sometimes I feel like when I'm doing something like this where it's pretty obvious what I'm doing, there isn't a lot of detail there for you to be like, what is she really doing with her pencil? I mean, I'm basically filling in the color there. I don't feel like I should be as zoomed in because I personally like to see an overall color along. Okay, so here I zoomed in and you can see how much bigger the number is, and now part of the number, the orange square, is missing. Those kind of things bother me, but if you knew how many hours I have spent editing this, they don't bother me that much. So I appreciate your patience, and I will get better at figuring out a better system that works for me, that will be good for you as well. So here I'm just going in with that cream color and the layers of the blue, going in with my darker tone here over the top. Sometimes that doesn't work as well as starting with your darker tone, but I kind of like how it worked with these colors. They blended really nice. And then going in with the lightest tone, kind of blending down into that cream and getting a more smooth blend. I thought it'd be fun if he had kind of this greenish color eye. I debated on doing something totally different. You know, like a completely different color than we've used. I'm kind of glad that I didn't. I felt like the eye needed a little more shading, something to give it a little oomph, to use our technical term from before. So I felt like adding a little bit of blue to it would give it a little bit of life. So next up is our bubbles down here. I don't know, I think they're bubbles. They could be like eggs, or not sure exactly, because it's so fish usually lay their fish usually lay eggs in the rocks and seaweed. So I'm not sure if that is what we're depicting, but I went with bubbles and or little round rocks. But I'm gonna add in several different colors to each of these rocks, each of these bubbles, sorry. So what I do is I just go in and add little pops of yellow and blue, and maybe even purple, I can't remember, into each one of these little bubbles. There's no real rhyme or reason for where to put it or how big to make it. Some of the little ones I just skip. Once again, not every bubble needs to have every color. You can put them in all of them, you can put them in just some of them. I just feel like it adds a little something extra to them. I may even go in and add a little iridescent shimmer shine to them with like a weak Stella. So if I go in and, what was the other thing I was going to fix? I was going to fix something. See, I already forgot. I'm just using the blue kind of as my darker color there, and then adding the light blue and then the green. Okay, so we're just going to do some final touches. We have these scales right here at the front, which I felt like should be a different color. Don't ask me why. They could have been the same color. You could have done the white with the purple, but I chose to go in and do these in that blue with the aqua at the end. I just think it adds another little pop of color. Oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to put the little dots on the coral. So I might put some dots on the coral, and I might put a little bit of that iridescent shimmer on the bubbles down at the bottom, and to give them a little pearlescence. We'll see. By the time I'm done editing this video, I might be over it. This video has been a long adventure. But I hope that you've found it worthwhile. So just adding in the little bit of dark there. You can see when I move my big fat hand that it does make a pretty decent difference. So I decide to go ahead and just add a little deeper layer, not just the one little like vein, but to take that color down just a little bit more. Even on that right hand side, even more than I just did. I just felt like that looked a little better than having the lighter. Kind of deepening these shadows with that same color. So all that's really left right now is just touching up things. Right now I'm using a darker color to go in and just deepen my shadows and really just add a little bit more value, make things pop a little bit more. Watch as I go around this edge how it makes that shell seem almost like it's stuck into the fish. I just always find that really cool when that happens. But anyway, we've got about 15 more minutes, and it's mainly touching things up. There's that one little piece of the fin that I haven't done, but I'm just kind of blending in some of my colors and filling in maybe where I missed a spot. And then at the end, I'm going to be adding a Posca pen and, bringing in those pops of white. So I'm going to leave you to it, and I will catch you on the next video. Don't forget to hit the like button, and if you wouldn't mind responding to the posts that I'm going to put in the community page about what techniques you'd like to see, and any polls on the next color along and that kind of stuff. So I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.